Welcome to the City Lifestyle podcast, hosted by Red Rock City Lifestyle, South Vegas City Lifestyle, and Henderson City Lifestyle. So in this podcast, we're going to be diving into the people, the places, the businesses, and the charities that make our community, and we are so excited that you're here.
Welcome back to the podcast. You are here with Chad Jeffry with South Vegas City Lifestyle and
Crissie Bown with Henderson City Lifestyle.
So what are we going to talk about today, Crissie?
So we both have been in advertising for a really long time. And, we've met with all different kinds of businesses across every single category you can imagine. And a lot of times, we'll hear a recurring statement that comes up when we're going through a strategy session with a client. And it is that advertising doesn't work.
Ooh, okay. I like it.
I love this comment because I feel like, my inner nerd is just like, this just got interesting. And I love to do the deep dive to figure out the why. Mm-hmm. And we've talked a lot about this, just different reasons for why that might be the case. But, if you had to say like what the biggest reason would be for why a campaign might not work, like what do you think that those key factors are that it boils down to?
I mean, there could be a variety, right? Mm-hmm. Like I've worked through Yelp, I've done newspaper, I've done digital, I'm doing South Vegas City Lifestyle now. A lot of times it comes down to either a miss with who your audience is, who you're trying to reach, mm-hmm. Comes down to a miss with messaging to that audience, mm-hmm. or simply tracking. A lot of times when we talk with business owners, they're not tracking appropriately for that medium that they're using or multiple mediums, right? When I've done other kind of advertising ventures, a lot of times it's like a last click, last touch point attribution, but we don't look at that entire process to get a potential customer of theirs to spend money. So I think a lot of times, like you mentioned, when we do this deep dive, it's understanding how do all those pieces go together and where can you be most effective with it.
Well, you mentioned something that I think, is really something we should hone in on, which is the trackability factor, right? Mm-hmm. So, I feel like as business owners, and we know because we own our own magazines, like we get obsessed with them. We love them. We do all this work on the back end and, we launch our businesses and we think like everything's going to be perfect. But, we want everything to be outwardly facing perfect. Mm-hmm. But you mentioned the trackability and setting yourself up for success on the backside so you can actually track those things. So like, what do you think is the biggest miss with the trackability, with setting yourself up for success when you first start your business in terms of being able to track?
I mean, we just had a client, right, that didn't even have Google Analytics on their website. Like, how do you have a conversation in regards to anything if you don't know what traffic you're getting? Like, where is it coming from? Like, what time of day are people hitting it? And he's a very, very specific type of client, but at the same time, like, we don't even have baseline for him right mm-hmm. now. So as we start looking at all these different factors, whether it's a digital campaign, whether it's something like what City Lifestyle does of actual branding and awareness and kind of top of funnel approach, what is that next step that these different things are providing to that end consumer for the business? Like, are we going to the website? Are we looking at like a home improvement photo gallery? Like, how long is that process actually going to take before that client spends money? And a lot of times I think when we're talking about like quote unquote advertising not working, we're missing out on that funnel. And again, tracking like how long does it take for a customer to spend money? What are those steps? Are we getting multiple quotes? Are we at an emergency type situation with plumbing and air where we need someone right now? Like, it doesn't matter who it's going to be. Like, we just need it fixed. So I think all these different pieces go in. But when we're sitting here trying to talk with a local business owner, we're sitting here trying to like navigate that without sounding salesy, right? So it's hard.
Well, and I think part of it goes back to, having a really great understanding of who that core customer actually is. Mm-hmm. And that's where setting up some of those analytics on the back end helps because, as much as I would love to say like, we ask a lot of business owners, who's your target audience? I'm like, well, everyone. And it's like, everyone. We get that every single time. Yeah. And it's like, well, I would love to think that every single person, is going to be a perfect fit to read my magazine. Like, that's not the case. Yeah. We have a specific audience of people that we are trying to target with City Lifestyle, and our businesses that we work with are in the same situation. They're going after a specific type of clientele. And I think sometimes, people have an idea of who their core customer is, But then once they actually can look at the data and do a little bit of a deeper dive into the analytics, like it will shock the hell out of people as far as who their client actually is. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that can be amiss when you're first establishing those, those platforms you're going to use, the messaging that you're going to use in your creative. And, when you look at the reasons, if a client tells me advertising doesn't work, to your exact point, something is amiss there. Like, was the target that we're going after off? Was the platform that we use actually targeting that specific audience that you're going after? And if those two things line up, then you got to move to the next ring of the ladder, which is, what was the messaging that you used? Like, was the messaging that you used effective? Like, if you want somebody to pick up the phone and call you, if you want somebody to set an appointment on your website, did the message indicate the action that you wanted them to take? Or was it just a branding message that was like, we're here when you need us? Because really, like, your advertising messaging should be third grade level. Everybody should be able to
walk us through that. If you're dealing with a client, how do you structure good messaging for their campaigns?
I mean, I think it goes back to the KPIs, like the key performance indicators. How are they going to be measuring the success of the campaign? And I think it goes back to what you're selling. If it's something like, hey, go try this cheeseburger for lunch, that's a lot broader of a message versus a real estate agent who has to find somebody who is specifically in the market to sell their, $600,000 home. Like, and it depends on the product that you're selling, and what, to your point, that cycle is, right? Yeah. Like, if it's something like an attorney or a real estate agent or, something that has that longer pipeline, then it probably is going to be more of a branding message versus, to your point, like an AC or a plumber. If we're in like the dead of summer in Las Vegas, it's 110 degrees.
So much fun here.
Yeah. And your AC goes out. This is like SOS. Yeah. I need somebody here like yesterday. Help, So I think the messaging depends on the product that you're trying to sell and what that cycle is. But I mean, we go through this all the time too. A lot of times, we love our businesses so much that we like smother our clients with information about our businesses.
I am fully guilty of overselling. It's horrible.
It's
hard. You over communicate because the passion just comes out, right? It's like,
yes.
They don't need to know every in and out of every single page. It's like, let's focus again our messaging on how to help these clients.
Yeah, and that's it. It's like the consumer just wants to know, like, how are you going to help me? How are you going to improve my life in some way, shape, or form? How are you going to make my life easier? Like
I'll add one more, like customer testimonials too.
Yeah.
Right? Like Google reviews, Yelp reviews, they're out there. Bring those into your campaigns. Like, these are people that are volunteering this positive testimonial about you. Like, why are we not using that information that's already available?
I agree. I mean, and I think, it really goes back to sharing the user benefit. What's the user benefit that the consumer is going to get from this message? Like, leave them with something that they can take away or show them how you're going to improve their life. And, the other aspect of it too is, guiding them in the direction. You have to guide the consumer along the journey that you want them to take. And I feel like sometimes people miss that step. I don't know. I mean, the other thing too that we see a lot is, people are so used to getting this like instant gratification. You were just talking about this.
100%.
And I think that they feel like we're so used to that instant gratification because of our phones. I mean, we can order whatever we want and have it delivered tomorrow because of Amazon, Yeah. So I think with marketing, people will get super excited about a campaign. They'll launch it. They'll be like a month in, and all of a sudden they'll have this like, oh crap moment of, I didn't get any calls. Nobody's reaching out to me. Like, they expect people to just like burn the doors down, like, going to use their product or service. But the reality is, like, it takes time. Everything takes time to build. It could take somebody 7 to 10 times. And nowadays with how...
I think it's more.
Yeah, you were just saying that.
Yeah,
like,
I just read it's like 4,000 to 10,000 ads a day people get exposed to. Like, it's insane.
It's
and
crazy.
I think here in Las Vegas, like, you drive and you just see like billboard, like casino signage. Like, there's all these different messages hitting you, right? So how do you cut through that noise with your message if you're a small business? And I think that's where what we do helps a lot of businesses because, again, we can get their message directly into a home. But we're sitting here and, again, identifying, like, is the audience right for you? Like, is this someone you're focused on doing it? Because I know we talked a little bit about messaging. How many different audiences do you think is possible for a business to have?
I mean, it's a good question.
Yeah.
And I think, again, I think that goes back to like I think that goes back to who that core audience is, knowing who that core audience is and knowing how the best way is to reach them.
Yeah.
Hang on, I need a sip of water. I am like the Sahara in my mouth right now.
You're good.
Are we flowing okay? Let's just take a time step.
No,
Okay.
Yeah. There's no
Well, it's
awkward
actually
pausing.
interesting too.
Yeah.
Like me as a business owner, like I would actually listen to this
Yes.
because you guys both are knowledgeable about it.
I mean, that's the whole,
Well,
that's
that's
the
why
whole
I need
point
to-
of what we're doing here. So
That's why I need to interview both of you guys for my podcast
Yeah.
because
we made it.
All
We've
we
already
do-
made it, Crissie.
all we do is talk about marketing.
Yeah.
And you guys have different expertise in that area.
Yeah.
What else do we need to hit?
The lack of consistency, what the consumer wants. And we did that already. I think we could do a little bit of a deeper dive into, because you asked me like, how many people can they serve? That's a tough question. And truthfully, like, I mean, we could keep rolling now, I guess. Just let it flow. You can chop out the parts where we sound like dum-dums. But like, you asked me like, how many different platforms can a business have?
I don't know if it's necessarily a platform, but like if we're looking at core audiences, right? Like how many potentially should a business have? How many can they have? If we're looking at like, again, a specific market, is there a different message for like male, female? Is there a different message for age ranges? Like how deep do you start getting when you structure a campaign?
I mean, I think absolutely you have different messages for different targets. If you're, even just between us, like if somebody's trying to get me to purchase something, the message
It'd
is
be really easy, but anyways.
okay. Anyway, so if they're trying to get me to buy something, then the message is going to be different than you. I mean, we're going to be interested in different things. Different things are going to catch our eye. I want to see ads for Valentine's Day and Taylor Swift and nail salons and hair salons and those kind of things. You don't care about those things. So the point is like, when I first got into advertising, I thought this was so funny because like when you're a kid and you're watching TV, for example, like you see all these ads for toys and games and those kind of
I
fun
have a
things.
5 and 7-year-old. It's
Yes.
a brutal time of year.
It's constant though, right? You're watching TV or whatever it is with them or, anything that they're doing. And there's all these messages that are catered towards that. Well, if you're not in advertising, you probably wouldn't realize this, but as you get older, do you ever notice how you stop seeing those ads for the games and the toys and all those things? Like that's the point. That's the reason, And I think that goes exactly to your question is like, you have to cater the messaging to the right audience and the messaging here in Vegas even too. Like Vegas is a unique market in a lot of ways. And
How so?
I mean, first of all, people would call us kind of a transient town. There's people that are moving here, in droves right now from all over the country because of a lot of reasons. Vegas is an amazing city. And I'll get into how much I love the city at a later time. But because I could go on for days.
That's its own episode.
podcast.
Yeah, seriously.
But I think because of that, you've got your core natives that are actually from here, but then you've got all these people that are from all over the country and all over the world, and so it's a little bit of a melting pot of a city. And I think in other places, if you were to advertise in other places around the country, you might not have that big of a melting pot where you kind of have to be able to appease a lot of different people.
So like City Lifestyle, right? We have 180 publications.
Yep.
Do you think Las Vegas is different than Gallatin, Tennessee, or Chattanooga, or
Oh my God, yeah.
Manhattan, Kansas, or
Yeah.
any of these kind of like Midwest, or even like looking down into Florida? Like, how do you think a business owner structures their message effectively for their market?
I think it's completely different than some of those other places because a lot of the other, some of those other places you mentioned, people are probably from there. They probably lived there their whole life. They probably, there's not going to be as many people that are new moving into those cities. Here, again, we've got people that are moving here every single day. The message has to be relevant. The message has to be current. Like, and it also goes back to, clients saying advertising doesn't work because they might have run a great campaign, 2 years ago, and it might have taken off for them. And then, maybe they took a break and now they're picking up again. Like, the consistency is the key to the whole game with advertising. Like,
I love the companies that say everyone knows we exist already.
Well, yeah, but what about the people that just moved here because we have no state income tax and they're trying to like dip out of California? It's like you have to stay present. You have to stay consistent, and your message has to. You have to stay present all the time for it to actually have a lasting impact, especially in a market that's growing as quickly as Las Vegas is right now. And ultimately, like any type of advertising that you do is going to help you. But I think it really goes back to, okay, where am I as a business owner going to see the best bang for my buck? How am I really going to concentrate my efforts in the areas that are going to hone in on my core audience as best as possible? Yeah. And that can be tough. And that's where like, who you work with and who you decide to partner with really comes into play, because like, business owners are highly intelligent people and they are specialists in their field. Like I'm not going to walk into a courtroom and pretend like I know how to try a case,
Or stem cell therapy.
Or stem cell therapy. I don't know, And I think sometimes, business owners can be intimidated by marketing because it's like they don't know where to start. They don't know how to navigate the space. And finding people that you can trust, that you can actually rely on, that are going to, give you solid, sound advice is crucial as part of this whole process too. Because another reason why advertising doesn't work is, we've worked with like some amazing people over the course of our careers. Like, I have worked with some highly intelligent, just incredible people that work in media sales. On the flip side, there's also some shysters, that are I
think that's another episode on itself right there.
I think so too. So, yeah, that's a great topic for a future one. But exactly that, like, if you end up, connecting with somebody who's just trying to like get that one call close sale for their organization, whatever media organization that is, and they, do what we call set it and forget it with your campaign, where, they close you on an idea and then kind of just let you be, and don't update the messaging, don't, have those consulting conversations to say, how is this actually working for you?
I would say stale messaging is also a big problem.
100%.
Like not updating your ads, not being relevant, seasonality. Like there's a ton of different ways to put forth a new message, right? Like how do you just tie it in a little bit with what's happening around the community? So that's a big challenge I see with a lot of partners, is just not, again, moving that ball forward to say like, hey, we have a platform to put your message in front of this audience. Why would you tell them the same thing 18 times in a row? So I think that's like a big part of where we can come in, right? And just help be like, hey, we have our different themes. Like we have these different messages, seasonality. How are we going to your point, like progress that reader to the next step and help them spend money with you?
Yeah. And they like, there's a saying on Instagram, the trend, where it's like, do less, God bless. Yeah. And to that message, I say, I know, hashtag, but I say it's like to that message, like, preach, brother, because that like truer words have never been spoken. And that's where we have to come in and be those consultants and actually say like, go back to what that user benefit is actually going to be in the messaging, and, updating that. Like, I think a good example of kind of pivoting your message for the times was during the pandemic, like, especially here in Vegas, like people.
The Strip shut down. Like,
I know. It was like a ghost town. Did you go down there?
I did. It was like,
it was eerie.
Bizarre.
It was like, it almost felt like it was like apocalyptic. It was creepy.
It was weird.
It was very bizarre. But, during the pandemic, we saw a lot of businesses that, just said like, I'm out, and they literally just cut their advertising during that time. Some by choice and some didn't have the choice. They just had to, from a financial standpoint. But we saw a lot of businesses pivoting their messaging during that time. And I think, it was a good lesson in the marketing industry, because I think a lot of times, to your point, the messaging does get stale. It does get old. And of course, during that time, we had no choice. We had to pivot. But there's other factors, like other market conditions that we have to be aware of as we're putting these messages out to make sure that the messaging makes sense with the current market conditions. And I think that by kind of catering those messages to the current marketing conditions, you're showing your relevancy, you're showing that you're in tune with what's going on in your city. And it also shows the reader, or the viewer or whatever it is, we're here with you. We're walking alongside this path called life with you, So, I think the market conditions can have a huge impact on what the messaging is. Seasonality can have a huge impact on what the messaging is. But I think, ultimately at the core of why a campaign doesn't work, it's probably going to be a variation of one of those three things. Was the message targeted to the correct audience? Was there consistency in the campaign? Did you give it enough time?
So let's dive into that a little bit, because we've talked a lot about audience, we've talked a lot about messaging. Why is consistency important?
Because again, it can take people, 7 to 10 times to actually take in the message, remember it, whether they realize they're remembering it or not. It can take them time to actually absorb that message, take it in. And the other thing is that depending on what your service is, they got to be in the market for your product or service. Yeah. And so, you got to find the right person at the right time. And sometimes it might not be the right time, but you're building that top of mind brand awareness so that when the time is right, you're there. It's funny because I kind of had this Devil Wears Prada moment recently.
Of course you did.
Of course I did. Yeah. And so, fantastic movie. If you ever want to sit down and watch it, it's great. But there's this line. Have you seen that movie, by the way?
I've seen it once or twice, yeah.
Oh, of course
I wouldn't
you
say
have.
I'm throwing it on every weekend.
It wouldn't shock me if you were. Okay. But anyway.
Big fan of Aaron Brockovich. Not so much Devil Wears Prada.
So in the movie, there's this line where Anne Hathaway's character says, I don't care about fashion. And Meryl Streep's character says, it's funny you say that because the blue color you're wearing pertains to a fashion show that we did X number of years ago, which was selected by the people that are in this room. And it's very similar with advertising because, people will say oh, I hate advertising, and we're when they hear even that we work in advertising and publishing, it's
Yeah, seriously.
But
there's some viral, kind of visceral reactions sometimes.
There is, but the thing that's crazy about it is kind of like Meryl Streep was saying. It's 90% of the products that you're using every single day that are in your home, that you're wearing, that you're, I don't know, whatever. Those things, you made those decisions, whether you realized it or not, subconsciously or whatever, because of messages that you have absorbed over time because of ads. And now there's all different kinds, right? There's Instagram ads, Facebook ads, there's, TV ads, print ads, there's all
influencers, user-generated content. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, it makes me laugh because, when I hear that, I'm whether you realize it or not, you are being sold. You are being sold every single day, subconsciously, by these messages that are subliminally being put out into the universe. And, I don't know. I just think it's interesting, when you take a step back and you kind of realize, Yeah. But I don't know.
So if we were to compact this, which I know is hard for you.
Oh, okay.
Into one or two sentences, what do you think is
Is this roast going to continue the whole time?
The whole time. It won't end.
Oh my
God. What do you think business owners, whether they're brand new, opening today, or have been around for 20, 30 years, need to know about marketing and advertising?
Bottom line, deep dive into who that core audience actually is. Have a deep understanding of who those people are. Don't start a campaign unless you have the ability to have consistency for at least a year.
Yeah.
And make sure that you actually spend time curating what that message is going to be. And do not set it and forget it. Reevaluate. Use that trackability that you were mentioning. Make sure that you're actually, taking the time to look, as I say, look inward, friends.
Should they do this by themselves?
No, I think it helps to have an outside voice to be able to kind of, take a look at that and say, is this actually working? I don't like how I said that. Ask me that again.
Should they do this by themselves?
I don't think so. I think it's highly beneficial to have somebody who's not as close to the business be able to analyze it and just give an outsider's opinion. Because sometimes business owners, like, we can get too close. Like, we can get too close to the brand. We can get too close to,
Our baby.
We can get too close to our baby.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but sometimes you need the outside person to come in and not, I mean, you would do it very directly because of how you deliver messaging, as we know. But sometimes
So the roast goes both ways. Got it.
Yes.
Check.
So, but you need that person who's going to say, like, nicely, Chad, that the baby is ugly, you know? And while it hurts, like, we respect the honesty, but it still hurts. Like, having that dose of honesty is good in the long run, even if it is painful at the time, because it is going to help you grow your brand long term.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree. I think it comes down to three main things, right? Frequency, audience, message. Easiest way to remember it is fam. Like, make sure you're taking care of the fam.
I love it. There's a lot of different components. Like, there's obviously a lot of components for why a campaign doesn't work. But if a campaign doesn't work, then take the time to get to the root of why, and try to course correct. Not everybody's going to get it right the first time. You might have a campaign that's amazing straight out the gates. You might notice some things along the way, and you have to be willing to make those pivots, make those adjustments, to make sure that it still is working in the way that you want it to work.
Thanks for tuning into this episode. We look forward to seeing you on a future one. If you have any questions, reach out to us at South Vegas City Lifestyle, at Henderson City Lifestyle, at Red Rock City Lifestyle. We'll see you next time.